to our week 3, which discusses the third topic on our course outline. But before we go into the week 3 discussion, I want to quickly mop us up with the discussion on week 1, which focused on what? Understanding the rationalist thesis, what the rationalist statement is all about, what they seek to say or argue for, or what the concern is. Okay, the date is 2023. Okay, which has to be edited on this slide. So the task I had in this presentation was to engage the class on the key themes of rationalism. If you were to think of it as an epistemological position and not the generic sense of the word being rational. So it is your duty, and you can ask for extra, emphasis when you engage a tutorial. But I would make time on our course outline, like you see, to discuss the rational, irrational, and non-rational. These are terms that are sometimes confused. If I say someone is moral or non-moral or amoral, you see that non-moral and amoral are not saying the same thing. What are the differences? What are the implications of that for our discussion? So it is important that we realize that we are speaking here of rationalism as an epistemological position in epistemology. So a little revision of what epistemology is would help you. The question of philosophy, the branch of philosophy, the discipline of philosophy, the field of philosophy, that is what? That is interested in the question of knowledge, its justification, its sources, etc., etc. Now, that branch, which we have highlighted a moment ago about philosophy, the one concerned with knowledge, justification, sources, the test for it, etc., is called epistemology. And in responding to the question of epistemology, we know that there are two main traditional positions responding to what the sources, the test, the justification of our knowledge claims are. How do we know what is knowledge? How do we justify our claims of knowledge? In responding to that, there's been two philosophical positions. One labeled the rationalist response, and the other one labeled the empiricist response. And we learned all of these from level 100 through 200, all the way to now 300. Okay. Now, the few that responded to the question labeled as rationalism is the one we are focusing on now. Okay. So we want to know on my slide now, my task is what clearly distinguishes a rationalist from an empiricist. Now you get the frame. What will distinguish a person that we call rationalist from the one that we call an empiricist? And what are the various ways of being rationalists? Okay, so I use the Christian, I use the religious point of view because of the doctrine thing about the position. So we have, if you thought of rationalism as a Christian view versus say empiricism as an Islamic view or Muslim view in Ghana here, just for easy comparative, I'm trying to give you something to look at as a model to help you grab what we are doing easily so that you don't get yourself worked up in the technicalities. So just as we have two, if you like, types of religious positions in Ghana, there are more, but we highlight the main ones as two. You would want to know which version of Christianity, even when the person is said to be Christian, there could be versions of it. Remember my talk on that. So you play the recordings too that we will share ultimately, and you will see the same thing. In philosophy, rationalism is the epistemological view that regards reason as the chief source and test of knowledge. Okay, so generally, this is how rationalism has been distinguished from what? Empiricism. We went further to open it a bit more further to say that is to say any view that appeals to reason as a source of knowledge or justification is clearly rationalist. And so a third way of still looking at the same thing, but you see the level of emphasis is different, is to say that it is a methodology or a theory with the criterion, the litmus test, what you use to test the criterion of the truth is not sensory, but what? Intellectual and deductive. Sometimes you see logical. Now, what should you note? Take note of something that different we have done both for main campus and city campus. So I'm walking you through, then we have a good frame to get into the third, lecture. That way, when I reference intuition deduction, or I talk about moderate view and what have you in the third lecture, you can relate to this easily. That's why I'm going through it again. So different degrees of emphasis leads to what? A range of rationalist standpoint. The different places of emphasis. Let us see. For example, some would think of, come my screen, please. Some would think of reason. When we say reason, we can replace it with intellect, replace it with what? Mind, but it helps to speak it in a certain way so that you avoid confusing yourself. Now, something that reason has precedence over other ways of acquiring knowledge. That simply means other sources can be there, but one will preside. That is, I will give it attention, primacy, before the other. It doesn't mean the one that I gave attention to first is better than the other one. No, I let it preside. So I think that City Campus, I gave a joke. I said, the fact that you allowed Johnny Bravo, the guy who you married, the first place in your life, in other words, he was the one, doesn't mean he was better, necessarily better than the other guys that came. No, sometimes not a question of better. So superiority is not the issue. You will see why the three theses that are core are there. Then we think of superiority of reason and the indispensability of reason as just what? Additions. Their presence is good if it's there, strengthening the rationalist position. But without it, a view can still be considered rationalist. Okay. So precedence means you give it first attention. I think it's primary. So it's first on your list, not necessarily better. I choose one over the other. God chose us, so not because we are better than people who are out there, but God can give us primary attention, precedence. We will precede others. So you are the head, not the tail and all that, not because of you having a certain quality that someone else doesn't have. No. So if you have that thought and it sinks in well with you, then you understand that it is a moderate position to say that with moderacy, like the churches that are relatively liberal, they allow for, a lot of exemptions. They feel that, so it's a moderate view. It's not a Frenching, staunch position, no, of rationalism. It is moderate. This one allows for others to feel comfortable as well. When I say others now, the empirical or the empiricist view feels what? Comfortable. Because you may choose one over me. If you chose Johnny Bravo and you left me at Tapapo, and you give reason that, please understand me, you are a good guy at Tapapo. You yourself, you are a fine guy too. But I really think I'll go with Johnny Bravo and not you. There is no judgment of who is higher and who is smaller in that. Okay. It is just which one I give primary attention to. So if Atapapo is a decent guy, you walk away so confident that, well, perhaps she prefers to choose this. Not that I am worse than the other guy. So that's why it's a moderate position. It gives room for empiricists to still make their point that at least it has not denied that the empirical sources are not also sources for knowledge. Okay. Now the other position, still a rationalist view, which must be called, or which is described as extreme. It means if it's a church, is the one that is the one we call how do I put it? They emphasize so many things and it's strict. Yeah, it's a strict and staunch view of rationalism. Is that view that says reason is the unique path to knowledge. The unique. There isn't any uniqueness. a dimfwa. So sometimes when someone wants to play around with you and make you feel like you are the queen of the world and all that, and the vibes are flowing, they can tell you things like this. But as a thinker, I believe you know that that can't be true. How many have they met? But it's okay to enjoy it for the moment. So uniqueness. You are unique. There is none like you. Of course, to a certain degree, we can talk of human being. Our thumbprints even make us unique. Empirically speaking, we are yet to find out one day if someone will come into the world and share thumbprint with some other person. Then we will say that our empirical view or our hypothetical view, our confirmed view, after all, can be falsified. But uniqueness here, all these examples to help you remember an extreme position, why we describe it as such in rationalism. That is the view that reason is the unique path to knowledge. It means that other paths do not lead us to knowledge. Knowledge, remember someone like Plato, not just beliefs, illusions, what have you know, but knowledge. Knowledge is beyond the physical, says Plato. Transcendent. So if it is knowledge proper, not beliefs, not sensory claims, the truths that are coming to you supposedly through the senses don't constitute knowledge. We will engage Plato's philosophy in some detail to tease out these. Okay, I said all that the last time. Then now on our screen, the rationalist thesis in detail. We learned, therefore, that at its core, rationalism consists of three basic claims. Basic claims. These three basic claims capture what you would call the rationalist view. For one to consider oneself a rationalist, she must adopt at least one of these three claims. If you are able to adopt all three, all the better. But if you don't believe in all the three, but you at least subscribe to two of them, say you are still properly rationalist. You may not even subscribe to two of them, but you just think only one of them is what you hold on to. You could still qualify correctly as what? A rationalist. So we go through that also. And the city campus test, who perhaps may have missed some of the things, I think that you are filling in the gap now. That is helpful to you. Okay. It is what the intuition deduction thesis, the innate knowledge thesis, or the innate concept thesis. So any one of them subscribing to that would make you a full-fledged rationalist. But you may look at the note down there, you may also adopt either the indispensability of reason thesis or the superiority of reason thesis. And that is what I explained earlier, that this one makes a statement. See, the first one says the indispensability of reason, that reason is indispensable in acquiring knowledge. It is indispensable. You can't take it out if you are looking for knowledge. That's high there. You can say it is the unique part. Unique means it is distinct. Unique, it is a sole source of knowledge. But that doesn't mean the senses can't play a role in helping that unique part to acquire knowledge. You see, it's language. So if I say reason is indispensable, that means I'm saying without reason, we can't acquire knowledge. That one is also a high. That's why if you add that to what you are saying as a rationalist, you are a very staunch or strict rationalist. Superiority of reason, that is what I explained with the other one. I said if you say a reason is superior, you have made a judgment. So you may be a rationalist and may not have judged between the empirical and the rational. You just think that you will give primacy, precedence to reason as the source. And it doesn't mean that you have necessarily made any statement about whether the empirical source gives a better knowledge or not. You may not have even talked about the empirical. So you don't have to subscribe to superiority of reason argument or indispensability of reason argument to qualify as a rationalist. They are additionals. And that's what I said last week. They are the veggies that you add to your jollof rice. When you go buying jollof and they add the veggies, you eat it. But without the veggies, and buy jollof, you have still bought jollof. You can't say that because there wasn't vegetables there, what you have is not jollof. It's jollof. So the essential thing, if I say I'm going to buy jollof, is to have the veggies. And that is what, excuse me, it is to have the rice. And that is the main three theses up there. The other two are the additionals, the side plate or whatever. Now we took each one of them. When I say each one of them, the thesis. And because we haven't studied the thinkers in detail, in the light of these, I will only introduce you to the philosophical views of the thesis of rationalism. And then now when we start engaging the authors themselves, you will do that beautiful job of linking them. So I only give you leads, I give you pointers, almost sometimes to the point of telling you, oh, but until you do that extraction yourself, you will hear me say it all over the place. He intuited this and said this. It won't come alive for you, I think, until after we've learned the main things that define a person as an innate concept, thesis, rationalist, so and so concept, innate knowledge, thesis, rationalist, etc. Then you will engage. So when we are dealing with Plato, we'll do it together. When we are dealing with Descartes, we do it together. If we have to do library, some of the views are almost similar, so I don't really worry myself much going through all that. Then we move on to Kant. You will tease them out to tell me, so would we classify this as innate knowledge or innate concept, or perhaps there are overlaps? That is when your work will begin. Okay, so we started with intuition, deduction, thesis. And we said this thesis concerns how we become warranted in believing some propositions in a particular subject area. I haven't had asked anyone to read. I haven't asked any questions. All that because this is almost like a mop-up. So we can get a good uninterrupted recording of some content on the intuition deduction thesis, on the preliminary one, before we launch into the new areas and then we engage from there. That way, it's a good build-up. So you are properly, served. So be at peace. If you have a question as we go on, just raise it. And then in the next 5 or 10 minutes or so, we'll reach where we think we should all go on. But this one has been done. So you will see that you are hearing things that, oh, I know I got this last week, or I got it earlier when I engaged the content on the academic channel. All right, so this thesis concerns how we become oriented in believing some propositions in a particular subject area, knowable by us by intuition alone, and still others are knowable by being deduced from intuited propositions. Note, the nature of intuited truth needs explanation, at least for Cartesian philosophy of Cartesian rationalism. When he says intuited truth, we know that the gentleman just says truth that was intuited was what? The truth. Truth just means the statement, a proposition, the claim. The claim that I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore I am. I am able to establish that I exist. I am just means I exist. My existence. I am something. Whenever I think of it, or I deny it, or I doubt it, or I affirm it, these are all supposedly mental states, according to Descartes. So when I am thinking, doubting, affirming, denying, etc., being deceived, then it establishes with certainty my own existence. And this truth, or this statement, this proposition, is just there. I just know. You see, it's unmediated. I'm explaining intuited truth now. So whereas we just see intuited truth, this C is in quote, it is just there. If you read the text, that's what it is. It's just there. Because for me to doubt that I exist, I have to exist as something, whatever it is, to doubt that I exist. That's the issue. Whatever it is, we are unable to establish in Cartesian philosophy. And so he now builds from there this intuited truth, okay, towards deduced truth. So from this, he deduces that if I exist, and I doubt and affirm and I deny for it to establish my existence, then there must be that which does the thinking, the doubting, the affirming, the denying. Because for me to think, I have to exist to think. For me to doubt, even for me to be deceived, I have to exist to be deceived. So I must be something before I can doubt that I am something. Now the question then is, thinking presumes a thinking thing. It's just a deduction. So he deduces mind, and from mind, he deduces the existence of God. Some 2 arguments, some say 3. Then we know that there was some secularity there. So I've said that over and over. I want you to start engaging that. When you went for tutorial last week, I think I asked your TA to take you through those things before I even engage. So it's like revision. This is an elective, so we have to present it, the content and everything around it as comfortably and accessible to you as we can. But you have to do your bit of it so that it doesn't come and spoil your grades. So almost everything is being done, like you can see. You go for tutorial, then you take those aspects. So when we engage the test itself, you see the secularity. You can even Google the secularity in Descartes, proof of the existence of God in his meditation. The meditations were 6, so I think that would be the 3rd or 4th. I think you can check. It's up to the 6th meditation. You see the secularity there. Secularity means like begging the question tautology. I say a bachelor has beaten his wife, sort of, but this one in argumentation. So in trying to establish the existence of God, he uses the existence of God to establish the very existence of God. You have to show that we'll do it. Then there's the other one. And so Descartes deduces from his own existence. He deduces what? The existence of God. And through that, he supposedly establishes the existence of matter, extended things, matter. Okay. Now, that should give us a good clue that if we look closely at Descartes' philosophy, we may want to label him as one of the rationalists called or thought of as what intuition, deduction, thesis, rationalist. One of you kindly read what you have on the screen, just for emphasis, then I move on. Quickly. Let's see whose hand is up. Anybody? Okay, so I see a hand up. That's Elijah Chamba. I see Kelvin Amuma. Pardon me, Tabitha Mensa. Roxy. Okay, let's take Tabitha. Thank you, my rep for main campus. Go ahead, Tabitha Mensa.
Intuition or deduction content. So, whereas we just see intuited propositions to be true, deduction is a process of deriving valid conclusion from intuited premises. Recall, validity. If premises are true, then conclusion must necessarily be true also, otherwise contradiction.
Very good. So the word up there is continued. We are continuing. Intuition, deduction, continued. If you see it on our slides, any lectures, that's what. Now, the sister read that very well. She says, the relationship, the connection between intuited truth and deduced truth is a necessary one. If the reasoning will be valid, if it is a valid one. Okay. So intuition, deduction tells you that what you are deducing has what? A truth that depends on the necessary truth, the intuited truth. And so if intuited truths are unmediated, they don't depend on another truth for them to be verified. In other words, they are self-evidently true. Then they don't need any justification. It is the other truths you are deriving from it that would need justification. Thankfully, the intuited truth is a master of his own. Then what you deduce from it, if you deduce validly, becomes also what? Conditionally true. But certain, you see, the truth of that other statement is dependent, it's a deduction, it's dependent on the intuited truth. Now the intuited truth is self-evidently indubitably true. So this one will have a borrowed certainty. The other one you are deriving will have a borrowed certainty. But you think of what we say in Christianity, that Christ is if the Christ is the foundation and you are rooted in him. You see, if God looks down, he will see you, Christ, not you, because you are inside him. Meanwhile, you are full of sins. But so far as you are rooted in him, you can be forgiven. And rooted in him is what will work on you to become perfect like him. So the perfection that you will have will be one that is dependent, is connected to a perfection from the one who is the source. See why people label Descartes as a foundationalist. You have to engage him closely. I'm pointing them out. He's a foundationalist, the foundation. Okay, he's working around the Archimedean principle. Check your level 200 and level 100 slides or notes I gave you on Descartes. You will see the intuition and deduction thing that I've stressed over and over again being typically evident, I think, to a large extent in Descartes. All right. So thus, intuition and deduction provide us with a knowledge a priori, which is to say, knowledge gained independently of experience. And I think for main campus, we didn't do these in some detail. That's why you notice I've asked someone to read. They will emphasize as if you are now saying it fresh. Main campus, I think we did it to some place around here, so it's fine. Knowledge that we have, we acquire a priori. What does it mean to acquire knowledge a priori? It tells you immediately, which is to say, knowledge that is gained. You get it independently of experience. You get it without, apart from, detached from what? Experience. So you get it apart from experience. You get it devoid of experience. You get it without experience. That is a priori. It talks about how you know, not what the knowledge is. If you get this distinction, when we get to Kant, you see how synthetic a priori truth is possible and how, therefore, he has to make a case for transcendental idealism to explain stuff. Okay? He thinks, or we should understand a priori truth as distinct from what? A posteriori truth. Big words, nothing much. Knowledge that you acquire without using experience or without depending on the five senses is distinct from knowledge that you acquire through experience. Now, intuition deduction, from what we have said so far, shows us that it is knowledge acquired a priori. And if it is a priori, as we have explained it, then it will be called what? Rationalist, because it didn't depend on experience. Remember our starting point revisions, the various versions of presenting the rationalist thesis. This one could be innate knowledge, innate concept, or intuition deduction. What about intuition deduction thesis makes a philosophical position like it rational? Oh, it is because by the time you use that thesis and what it proposes, you would come to the knowledge of truth, and you do so a priori without the help of experience. It will be the language, the maths of it, the logic of it. Remember, validity, the deduction of it is valid, is logic. So if it rains, the ground will be wet. It has rained, then the ground must be wet. Well, when it rains, someone can come and put a canopy there, and the ground will not be wet. But in deduction, what we are saying is, if it were true that if it rains, then the ground will be wet, and it was also true that it has rained, then it must be true. It's the logic, the logical relation that you work at. So if you are able to prove that I exist self-evidently, as we've done, then whatever you are deducing from it would have that nature of validity of truth. I am a thinking thing. How do I know that? Because I've established with certainty that even if I want to doubt, I'm Descartes now, I want to doubt that I exist. I have to exist to do that doubting. So maybe your query will be, but how will you know that you exist? My hand, my leg. It can't be my hand and my leg. Because that one, I see them to know. And I've already discredited that source in my bid to find certainty. Certainty that in his view, Descartes' view, was akin to what he has in mathematics. So he was doing same with the methodology of philosophy, doing philosophy, question asking. And so now he says, it can't be my body, but I have to be something that is doing the thinking. Then he arrives at what? Mind. And you know the mind-body problem and the issue of how they interact, in other words, how they are causally connected. And Descartes' response that is by interaction, and we tell him he has all those. He hasn't answered the question. You have to revise them. So we'll take ourselves through it. But this time we are taking ourselves through it to get to what we are teasing out. So that finally we come to the point that, oh, that is why intuition deduction is what an a priori. May it adopt, or at least that's what a priori truth. If so, and it's a priori, that simply means independent of experience, then it is rationalist, typically rationalist. Okay. Now you see why these courses have prerequisites, level 100, level 200. You can't jump from somewhere into level 300 and say you're coming to do certain courses. You can't do it because it builds on what you have learned already. So you don't want to throw them away. And so from there, we come to truth knowable by intuition and deduction. Some instances of such truth. And I'll need Lady Tabitha, sorry, please read this for us. We build on it.
Truths knowable by intuition or deduction.
Good.
Some rationalists take mathematics to be knowable by intuition or deduction. 2 + 5 = 7. For others, ethical truths fall in this category. It is wrong to kill humans indiscriminately.
Very good.
Some include metaphysical claims. God exists. We have free will. Our mind and body are distinct substances. Every event must have a cause.
Very good. So if you look at the examples we have given, showing some of the truth, I've told you to think of truth like propositions, statements that are supposedly knowable. How you know it? You know it by intuition and deduction. Some rationalists, take note, even some empiricists do, but not all of them. Locke, for example, will give ethical truths that's kind of what he would call reflected truth. So it is, even though he's empiricist, he thinks if you reflect on it, but we don't want to go there because you can't eat your cake and have it. You see, if you are black, you are black, you are white, you are white. This Motromojo lukewarm church there, we can't admit you. If you are Christian, you are Christian. If you are non-Christian, you are non-Christian. So there must be clarity. Don't try and give a certain interpretation of the person's view and say that, oh, but he gives and giving is there for this. No, this being Christian is not about giving alone, you know. So back to our discussion. These truths or knowledge, or if you like statements, claims, have been taken to be what? Examples of what? Intuition deduction thesis. You intuit them and then based on them you deduce. And some of them are what your lady Tabitha has read out. Mathematical truths. I told you, and I've said it over and over again in the past, so I don't want to bore you again. But I don't have to see to understand mathematical concepts. If you gave me 2 oranges in my plate and you say you added 3 extra, I don't see. Perhaps I have issues or have done an operation on my eye, or you are giving me a surprise. So you have tied my eye, so I can't see. But if you tell me that there were 2 oranges earlier and now you've added 3, and I tell you, oh, then I have 5 oranges, don't say no, that would be 1. And when I say, oh, but I said 2 and 3, you say yes, it was 2 and 3, but that would be equal to 1. And I say, oh, but 2 and 3 it can't be 1. Don't say you can't see. We are surprising you. Stop spoiling the surprise. No. Mathematical concepts are understood. See, they are something you do with the intellect, says these folks, not with observation. So it can apply to your 2 yards of cloth plus the 3 yards equals 5 yards. It will be equal to 2 women that you have been with plus the 3 extra. That's 5. So it's the same thing because it's a concept, it's an idea, you know. It can apply to several other things. How? You can do that by intuition and deduction. Just as 2 pens plus 3 pence equals 5 pence, you can apply the same concept to 2 nations plus 3 nations equals 5 nations are fighting. You're able to do that. It's intuition and deduction. The same with ethical truths. Amazingly, yes. The claim is that you don't need to be taught that. Those who hold on to this view, it's rationalists, typically rationalists. Because if it's empiricist, it will generate a challenge. So where did we know it? You are saying we source ultimately from the senses. So don't confuse yourself and everyone else. But we are speaking for the rationalist who says that is typical of even cultures of non-Western philosophical thoughts. And that's why I use no one teaches a child who God is. Next question, I just disabled your mic. Okay, I didn't mute it, I disabled it. Okay, so you won't be able to unmute. Don't bother doing it so that you don't stress yourself. It is wrong to kill humans indiscriminately, people. The rationalist says we know this without the mediation of the senses. It is knowledge that we acquire a priori by what? Intuition and deduction. It is true that it's just there. Remember Descartes, we just know. So you can't try to argue it differently. All right. Then by deduction, you might say, for example, that imagine it was okay for us to indiscriminately kill it. Indiscriminate means you don't discriminate when it comes to killing. Any human being, anything you are killing. Will we continue existing at all? There will be no functioning, existing human society anywhere if people could just indiscriminately kill everybody that they meet. Then we would have stopped existing. That's a deduction. We deduce that truth from what we already intuit. So we realize that it is wrong to just be killing. Maybe someone killing in self-defense, we don't encourage it, but we didn't intentionally do so. We may go to court and talk about it. But where we say, people should feel free, go around killing indiscriminately, that can't be true. That can be a correct way of thinking about human society. Who told us? We just know. And even if we deduce, then there we go, we will realize that cannot be accepted as the way to live. So such truths are there. The rationalists also say truths like God exists, man is free will. Mind and body are distinct substances. This is purely Cartesian. It's Descartes that speaks the substance language, and you know the challenges that are generated with the linguists, those who do analytic philosophy. Some thought, look, there are no two entities. So this thing about substances, you know, or that go and revise your mind-body problem slide if you have forgotten, okay, or the lectures. They're on my site there, my channel there. I don't know about this other place. Just play it a little to remind yourself of, oh, when Descartes said this, it led to this kind of problem, what have you. And then now it's clear to you. Okay, but this is typically Descartes. Substance language is Descartes, two separate entities. Whilst others think, the idealists think, no, there's ultimately one. The other one is just whatever, representation. Whilst materialists will say, no, there's ultimately one. But the other one is my state of mind, or the functioning of the body. Remember the categorical mistake and all that. We can run level 200 lecture, level 300. But substance is a talk for Descartes. It's Descartes' language of substance, which generates the mind-body problem in everyone. Descartes says you don't need, take note, to a mediation to know that. If thinking the same deduction method that he was using to arrive at certainty, I told you he was applying the supposed principles of maths and geometry. The guy was a mathematician and a geometricist or something like that. Descartes, that was what he was. And he thought that the discipline of philosophy could do with such strict methodological discipline. So he set up to say, don't just throw words inside statements here and there, God, this and that. No, that's what is generating a lot of contention. Make sure that you have good foundations, truth that is certain, just like we find in mathematics. This is the starting point. So I'm going to go through the question of trying to establish certainty, but I'm doing it philosophically. And I'm looking for that which I cannot, blah, blah, blah. Then he goes on to meditations. Okay, so the gentleman thinks that when we deduce, we arrive at what? Mind as the underlying whatever. He's a French, he spoke French. Okay, he said the book, what he discussed was in French. So when you translate it into English, that which underlies mental state, mind. Okay, and that which underlies physical state, matter. So two substances. What a substance is that which underlies it. What does it mean to underline? Nucleum, sort of, that which holds it up, that which sustains, if you like, thinking, reflecting, denying, affirming. Those are what? Mental states, mind. So that is the thing that underlies these is what? Mind. Then that which underlies physical state is what? Matter. So one is extended. Remember, I said revise your mind-body problem or engage the Descartes philosophy a bit more closely until we all do it in class. When we are doing it in class, our target is pulling out what is relevant for rationalism. So we can't do the whole lecture about Descartes. No, we'll just be pointing them out. That's why you should have refreshed your memory, know the whole thing that Descartes was. So if we pull the one that is useful for rationalism in our discussion now, it will settle in well for you. Okay. All right. So mind and matter are substances, and he thinks they are already known deductively. The same with a view like every event must have a cause, the principle of causality. See these very well because we'll engage them, hopefully, when we get to Kant. We'll talk about mind, matter as objects. We'll talk about space, time. We'll talk about causality and matters that are beyond the experiential world, which he calls transcendent. And his advice that at that level, you have to have an idealist posturing. So if you don't remember your idealism very well, then you may be thinking of the thing as too complex. But just a touch of revision here and there on what we have done so far will fit you in very well. Okay, so truths that are knowable, mathematical truths, ethical or moral truths, and then what? Metaphysical truth. Remember what the logical positivists had done then. They had thrown out metaphysics, ethics as all what nonsensical by their verification principle. So if Descartes and others that are called rationalists now bring these ones in, then you see that they are not purely anti-metaphysics. They just want what you claim to be metaphysically known or ethically known to have gone through what? The rigor of analytic, or if you like, logical, or if you like, rationalist thinking or thoughts. If you got that, we build on it. How radical is a view? We have done all that already. I showed the moderate and the what was the other one? Moderate and the strict view. The extreme view versus the moderate. You've seen it. Now radical means almost to the point of, out of the world position. High up there. Let's read. Let's have some more hands. Now the gas is in. Okay. Can I have someone else? Or you want Tabitha to keep reading? Calvina, go ahead. Tabitha, thank you very much. Be on standby. You may come back again. And we have a very good number. And I'm impressed by that. Go ahead, Calvina.
Thank you.
Right. How radical? The more propositions rationalists include within the range of intuition and deduction, and the more controversial the truth of those propositions or the claims to know them, the more radical their rationalism.
Very good. We are trying to see how radical. You see, we call vandals radicals, like they go to the extreme, sort of. So you can think of it that way. But how do you, determine which philosophical view or position in rationalism is more radical than the other? How? How do you determine that? It is by measuring how many propositions, statements, claims, okay, a certain rationalist includes within the range of intuition and deduction. So if someone on our list now, either Descartes, Plato, etc., considers, look on my screen now, please, considers every truth on our screen now. We have 3 of them. Some are mathematical, some are moral, some are what? Metaphysical. And even in those, for one, it might just be God, the notion of God exists. That is what? Intuited. All the others, they would think, no, 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 we came to learn it. We were taught that everyone is free, but we are not free. Mind and body substance thing, they think, no, no, no. These things, they are all by observation. It's because we see the table. That's why we know matter and stuff like that. So for such a person, the statements, the propositions that he or she consider to be what? Known a priori. I hope that didn't confuse you. Though the person may think that the truths that are known a priori are just God exists. What's the other one? Even it is wrong to kill humans indiscriminately. You will get someone who says, no, 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 that one is not it's not known a priori. It's by observation. You'd see Locke, John Locke. We observe to see those things. So you could have a rationalist who believes that yes, there are truths that are known a priori. In other words, sourced from experience, sourced from mind and not through experience. You see that when we start doing Kant, he will correct the language. So I've done Kant, I know Kant, so I try to correct it as I'm speaking. Kant will correct it, but we are not there yet. So let's look at what these people are saying. The source from and a priori is what Kant is saying. You are confusing two things. The source of something is not the same as how we know it. But the discussion at this stage between rationalists and empiricists is that God exists, is sourced from what? Pure activity of the mind without the help of experience. So it is known a priori, and therefore rationalists. Can't do something else. When we get there, you see the difference. Can't say sourcing from mind doesn't make it a priori. What makes it a priori is how you did the sourcing. So how you know is not the same as where you got it from. And if you clarify that, you won't call it a priori. So there can be synthetic truths that are known a priori. But as for these two people, the two extremes, rationalists and empiricists, that shouldn't be possible. You can't have a synthetic truth that you knew it a priori. I've gone ahead of myself because I need it on record so that you don't get confused. Because philosophy, this is a view, this is the other view, and then someone else will critique it. And in doing so, he will do language correction. So if I just speak and speak and speak, and then you grab this one without prompting that, look, this is what has been criticized. So now we don't speak that way. You will get confused when you get it. So I put it on record. Now let's go back to what we were saying. If you are described as radical, it will depend on what? The number of statements you take to be what? Known a priori, finito, as a rationalist. Now, if you had, say, for the third one, you believe God exists, but you don't believe the others there. For the second one, we say, no, 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 no. As for morality, it's a world thing. Every society decides that, blah, blah, blah. And then maybe you take mathematical truths as well as what? Known a priori. Then you have two statements. Back to our screen here, see how many propositions you consider to be within the range of what? Intuition and deduction. You may have only two. And those ones, are they the controversial ones, or they are the ones that even empiricists can agree with, like mathematical truth? The empiricist knows that you don't have to see 2 oranges plus 3 oranges before you know that it's equal to 5 oranges. Even the empiricist. Okay, so it's not as controversial, perhaps, as if you talked about what? Morality and what's the other one? The existence of God and stuff like that. Okay, so we will describe you as a radical rationalist by judging. That's what your lady read. Calvina read, by judging how many propositions you have captured and you accept as what? Known a priori. And not just how many of them, but how controversial they are, how contestable those views are. I hope you got it. Sometimes you may just have one, but that one is very controversial because of the various ways you can interpret its source. It will still make you more radical than someone who has about 3 such, and yet the 3 of them are all not controversial. Then that person will not be as radical a rationalist as you. So just know one of the ways of thinking of what? The view called intuition deduction thesis. How to describe an intuition deduction thesis kind of philosopher as radical? What will make you look at him or her as a radical intuition deduction thesis or a radical rationalist? Oh, for this view, if he has so many views that he considers to have been known what a priori. That is one way. And then in addition, if these known views are the controversial ones, and I've given you instances there, like everything that happens must have a cause. Causality is an issue. It's an issue, it's a central one. And you will see that it keeps appearing. Every event must have a cause. If every event was caused, does it mean that there is no need worrying about what will happen next? Just sit, because whatever will happen by the cause that is already set for it. That's how you should understand it. You see what Hume's reaction was when you do empiricism. But Hume questions the supposed causal connection between what cause and effect. I slap you and then you slap me back. So the assumption is that if you didn't go and slap this brother, he wouldn't have slapped you back. But when the girlfriend slapped the guy, he asked her to slap him again. I said it in class. So if it is my slapping him that made him slap me back, then why is that when the lady also slapped him? He didn't he didn't slap the lady back. The point is, Hume feels that there is no necessary, and you do that as empiricists. I just want to bring it in. Then we continue. There's no necessary causal connection that is empirically establishable. You can't establish that empirically. It's an assumption. So when you do Hume, then you see that's why what they talk about as Hume's skepticism. He's skeptical because he wants to be a consistent empiricist. Consistent. So it is not because you have planted a seed, so a tree came out. Anyway, there was a growth from the soil. Okay, because you put the seed there, then there was a growth. Others put seed there. There is no growth. And that's his point. So what is the causal connection? Do you know how many times people have been doing the mommy and papa thing for many years? Many years. They take it like para 2-3 times. Still, no child. So how do you establish the causal connection, the cause and effect connection, if you are doing so empirically? And he won't say it's a rationalist thing or it's a source from somewhere. So he's caught in a skeptical place. Just so he will be consistent, he maintains that causality is blah, blah, blah. When you do empiricism, I've given you an inkling there to see it, okay? But just so you can understand the radical views that we say someone can be labeled with if he were intuition deduction. Any question? Let's take a question if there is any. Okay, I see Roxanne's hand. Was it to read? If it's to read, then it's fine. But if it's a question, then please unmute and ask.
Yeah, Doc. Peter, I wanted to ask that concerning how radical, if the proposition of the rationalist is no more, but has some level of truth, can that make the proposition rational?
I don't understand your question, Roxanne. So please ask it again. Don't worry, re-ask it. Do you understand this one very well?
No.
Yes, do you understand how we are labeling someone as radical? This someone we are talking about will be the intuition deduction thesis rationalist. That's the one we have discussed. When will we say that Roxanne, who is an intuition deduction thesis philosopher, when will we say his position is a radical one? Okay, and then we explain that we will say so if he views a lot of propositions as what known a priori. So I went to the previous slide to show you if maybe he thinks that mathematical truths are known a priori, ethical truths too are known a priori, the existence of God, free will, mind and body as substance, and even the fact of causality, the principle of causality, are all things that we already know. We just know, say it that way. Not already know. Already know will be innate. We just know it. It's self-evidently true that if something happened, then something must have caused it. So we intuited it and we deduce it. Now, if he considers all these as propositions that we self-evidently know, by intuition and deduction. Then we will say he's radical because someone else will be intuition deduction thesis, but we'll just say it's just mathematical truth. The other ones, yeah, we don't know them, but a priori. It is experience, so a posteriori, that taught us that. So that person will also be intuition deduction thesis philosophy, but his own will be mild, not radical. Okay, that's the first part of the statement. And then second part, still defining radicalism, is where apart from the statement being more, they are also controversial. Controversial means they are contested. You can argue around it. So if this person picks the one that people contest over, if I use the Christian thing, it can be easier, but I want to use this thesis first, so you grab it. Suppose I say that a good Christian, a true Christian is the one who covers her hair for church. And apart from covering their hair, removes their slippers. And then all of them are cooked. And they don't eat meat. And they don't, what's the other thing? Eat fish that hasn't been scaled. And they don't do this. And they do plenty. I put plenty things to qualify someone as what? A Christian. Apart from that, not there's plenty things, but very controversial. A good Christian must marry like Solomon married. 300 wives, 700 concubines. Because that's why he was called wise. So if you are wise, you must marry plenty. You see, there are a lot of people who say, hey, as for covering the hair and things, we could have managed it. But why you are going in there? We say it's radical. Radical. We will whip you at our church. If you misbehave, we will whip you, like the way Jesus was whipping people. He has quoted Bible. That one, the claims are not only plenty, but they are controversial also. So bring it to rationalism, not just critical to this and that, but also very controversial to that. I said that because we are learning the abstraction, the view itself, without a focus on a specific author or some authors. You just grab the main lines until we start looking at Plato, for example, or looking at Descartes, for example. If you're able to look at more, we will. You will now see the point being made. Remember Plato, Kitwe, then we move on. Just a little tiny reminder. He doesn't think anything in this world, anything is real, insofar as it is given to us by sensation. How do we know? We see it, we hear it, with that word of forms versus word of appearance. Can you imagine that if you are thirsty, Plato says what you are drinking is not real water. It's an appearance of water. When you see a beautiful sister, she's not real. It's radical, man. That's the point. Okay. And so they are both rationalists, but some are extreme. And I think that has helped Roxanne. And I've done an additional explanation. Let's see if there's another question. Roxanne, is it okay, please?
Yes, Doc. Yes, Doc. I'm okay.
Thank you very much. Now we move on. So Tabitha, excuse me, Calvina, please read for us what I have projected now. No, this one. How radical, continue. There's a continuation there.
Okay. How radical is also measured by how the rationalist understands warrant or justification. Some take warranted beliefs to be beyond even the slightest doubt and claim that intuition and deduction provide beliefs of this high epistemic status. Some think of warrant in a more conservative,
Yeah.
Some think of warrant in a more conservative,
Don't worry. Don't worry, go on.
Some think of warrant in a more conservative way, that intuition and deduction provide beliefs beyond reasonable doubt.
Very good and well read. I want someone to explain this slide for us, please. From what I've said, we know the first way of defining radicalism. The second way, so the first one, when you have more propositions that you emphasize as known a priori. The second one is when not only are they plenty, there's a lot of them, but they are also controversial in nature. And Madam just read a third way, that if you were to have all the three, then you are a very radical rationalist, even if it's just intuition deduction subscribed to. So this third point is what I'm hoping that someone can throw light on for a mark. Anybody? You make an effort at it. We are over 100. Currently, I see 120. Okay. Okay, one person just dropped off, I think, maybe to rejoin. So let's have your views. Okay, so we have an interactive class. what Madam read? Can anyone explain? Let's explain one. Okay, so how radical is also measured by how the rationalist understands warrant or justification. So the person who is the rationalist, how he or she thinks of what? Justification. When I say the claim, that proposition has been justified, has been established to be true, okay, certain. I have given grounds, good grounds. The degree of emphasis I put on what I mean when I say the truth, say for God exists. If I say the claim that God exists is known a priori, and not just known a priori, we realize that that could be controversial because some don't believe that we need to make that assumption. The world can, you check what science is doing now. The belief is that the world can talk about every other thing without presuming any ultimate being responsible for anything. So your belief in God, which we Africans and myself included proudly go and praise and worship and all that, for some, you're wasting your time. You don't need that. So this person's view is controversial, the existence of God, for example, okay? So you add that mathematical truths are oftentimes not contended over because even the empiricist who is non-Christian, think of it that way, outside of the set, accepts that 2 plus 3 must be 4, must be 5. So we say we know the first one. They say now here where we are talking about a third degree of radicalism, being a radical could also mean that you just don't accept that God exists, but you think it is, look on my screen now, please. It is true, that claim is true without any iota of doubt. That's what Madame read. It is beyond even the slightest doubt. The first highlighted yellow portion up there in our slide, okay? It is beyond even the slightest doubt. It means there is no doubt. Remember Descartes' indubitable truths, truths that cannot be doubted. When you come to our African set, I've told you, we'll do some African reading. Not too many things, okay? Just a little bit of it, a little bit of it, a little bit of it. You see, Majid and Sons, so something on rationalism from an African perspective. Beyond the slightest doubt, the African tells you, Obi inchere akwadenyame. No one teaches the child who God is, the baby, tiny little baby who knows nothing. Nobody teaches her that. And that is not in contention. There is no doubt in the cantot. So there are certain things they tell you, you will know it by yourself. If you're a human being, there is something you come, the okra that I come into the world with has a spark of God in it. So you, the life-giving force in you, I'm doing that with I'm doing okra in Sunsum with the level 200. We had a good time the last time. The spark of Unyami in you is the reason why you don't need to be told Unyami. You yourself, you carry Unyami's spark in you. That's what okra carries. That is what the okra gives life. That's why the okra gives life. It's the sustainer of that life. And that if the okra if your okra, which is similar to what we would conceptualize as soul, if it exits, we don't care whether you were thick, tall, you wore Victoria's Secret, or you had an iPhone 14 Pro or not. That body will be thrown out. And I say it in a way that will hurt you if you I just lost my dad, you know that. We will throw it at that very day. We have to move it out of a building that maybe took 3 years, 4 years, 100 years, can be 100, 30 years to build. You move him out of his own room. Ask Kofiana of Blessed Memory whether he's still at the place that he was. That day you'll find a place. No matter how they decorate it, it will be 6 feet down there because the okra, which has the spark of God in it, and which inhabits a person, has left. If it leaves, what is left is baller. Direct truth that must be told. Baller. So we jump around all the baller thing. 3 months. Daddy passed, and some of you know, it passed 2nd October. By 5th November, Even that, it was just so that we can organize, because there were events there at the church place. Some people also had to. It is not disrespectful at all. What is left is respect for the container that he stayed in when he was there. That's all. You don't keep it for 3 months. What are you doing with it? Will you kiss it? The more he's there, that body is there, the more you even feel the pain. By 5th November, a month, he was laid to rest respectfully, loved. His memory is still with us. That's what is important. And you can ask about how Manitou went. And if we would try and do that, some even want to burn it immediately. So that one, sometimes I feel a bit, the discomfort because the person, regardless of the fact that it is the body, even your dress that you wore for a while, sometimes when you are giving it out to someone, it pains you because you have lived in it for a while. So the dress is small, you are still hanging your things. Every day you say, hey, this dress, hey, I remember that, and it's there, don't wear. So there's an attachment. You give it time, a little time, to get used to the fact that the person has left. That okra, which has left, carries unyame. So the person in Akan thinking, that tells you, nobody teaches the child that. You only help him remember. So you see what Plato says, knowledge is recollection. That is said without any iota of doubt. There is no doubt. They are not saying that, oh, it's good to believe that. No. So if you hold on to a belief, so let's bring it down to rationalist language. If you support or accept or, hold a doctrine that is radical, what will we mean when we say it's radical? Okay. There are more of such beliefs that you see we know a priori. That's one. Two, they are very controversial. Controversial meaning that it's not easy to accept. For everybody won't accept. Some will say, hey, this. Okay, so it's contested. Then three, you hold the certainty of those beliefs without doubt, the slightest doubt, right now. If you do that, we see you are very radical, because others, Madam read it, the second half now, because others may hold all these, but they just say that such beliefs that we say we know a priori, which may be controversial, are just beliefs that are beyond reasonable doubt. Not that they are beyond the slightest doubt, like Descartes' intuited truth, which was what? Known with certainty, indubitable. Truth that cannot be doubted. So you will see why perhaps we may want to label Descartes as what? A radical rationalist. There has to be a reason. Do you want to call him that? Maybe, oh, dog, but it's only one view that he holds that is controversial, that he thinks is beyond any doubt. But this other person, I think, holds quite a number of them. And so. So you are now putting the ideas you've learned of the rationalists together. It's up to you. But so far, that is where we are. Any question? Let me pause and take questions, please. Any question? No question. Okay. Kavina, if you want to continue reading, I'll be grateful. So now we have how radical again continued.
Yes, please. How radical the rationalist position also depends on how a proponent understands the connection between intuition on one hand and truth on the other. Some take intuition to be infallible, claiming that whatever we intuit must be true. Others allow for the possibility of false intuited propositions.
Very good. So we are rolling 2 steps back to what we had assumed from start. Intuited truth, at least for Descartes, is a certainty, and then others were derived from that. So that it is infallible means it can't be false. Remember Descartes' own, and I'm happy we have done some Descartes. So at least even though we have not revised it fully, I'm able to reference it. We said that Descartes says, I exist, therefore I am. Excuse me, the other way. I think, therefore I am. I am a thinking thing. That claim that I think, therefore I am is necessarily true, because for him to even doubt that he exists, he must exist to do the doubting. So not even the evil genius, the external world, or even the omnipotent God that he had proven, none of them could deceive Hiddekat or could tell Hiddekat, convince Hiddekat that he does not exist. Why? For them to tell him that you don't exist or don't deceive yourself, he must exist to be told that you don't exist. That's a truth that cannot fail. It's infallible, indubitable, certainly true, without any doubt. The challenge then is to establish what is this thing that exists. And that is when we have to go through all the others. So those who take intuition to be infallible, okay, are people will call radical. That means there could be a notion of intuited truth, which is not considered infallible, which admits that there could be possibility of falsehood. So it is important to put a name or a face to the intuition you are talking about, to the rationalism you are talking about, to the whatever a priori truth you are talking about. Otherwise, you'll be confusing everybody's view of a priori, everybody's view of intuited truth, everybody's view of rationalism. But I can be rationalist with you, you are also rationalist, and we will disagree on the ultimate sources of truth, to the point that one of us may even be closer in our view to an empiricist than the other. Use the Christian thing, you see what I'm saying. I said all that too. I can be Christian, and if you see me coming, you might think of me as a Muslim. Why? Because I'll put on my rafi, I will remove my slippers before I enter the church. I may have my Buddha, and yet I believe that blah, 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 blah. You see that? So the point I'm making is, you don't think that every intuited truth or everybody who believes in intuition necessarily believes in intuition as Descartes' kind. We can talk of Descartes with confidence because we have engaged his text. So what then is the fourth criteria, if you like, of establishing the radicality someone's rationalist view, even as an intuition deduction thesis? See, so far that's what we've done. The fourth one is to test the degree of fallibility associated with what? His claim of what? Intuited truth. That's what Madame read. So that those who allow for the possibility of a false intuited proposition, they will not be called radical, in the sense that those who say it is infallible would be called. Very good. We are going to the next one, so let's pause and ask questions. All these were on slide number 2. I'm happy I went through it. We would have skipped this. We didn't do it, not for main campus, not for city campus. So it's good we came through to that one. Now to the rationalist thesis, the second one. And I put innate concept thesis and innate knowledge thesis together when I was telling you to look ahead in preparation for what we are going to do in the slide number 3, okay? I like to do that a lot. You see, continuity helps, so that you don't know A, you know B, you know C, but you can connect. So look ahead. We are going to do innate concept thesis. We are going to do innate knowledge thesis. Knowledge and concept are not necessarily the same. Sometimes people believe that if you have innate knowledge, if you subscribe to the innate knowledge thesis, then you are likely going to be an innate concept thesis subscriber also, because concepts are put together to create knowledge. But sometimes it's not always the case. Okay, so the intuition deductive thesis, who else can read for me, please? Let me go. Thank you, Kelvina. Let's take someone else. Put up your hand quickly. There is no time. Okay. Ernestina, why is it that only the ladies are reading? Tabitha's hand just shot up again. Okay, let me take Ernestina. Thank you so much. Ernestina, go ahead. Let's read the summary. Ernestina, please read out. Okay. If you are using an earphone, maybe it's time to take it off.
Okay, sure. So, summary. The intuition and deduction thesis, the innate knowledge thesis, and the innate concept thesis are essential to rationalism. To be a rationalist, it's to adopt at least one of them.
Very good. You are reading clear. This is what I'm talking about. You see what I put, reminders that I put here. And when some assignment is due.
Reminders.
No, please don't read them. They are not for this class. But I'm just pointing out, people were saying some assignment is due 21st March and it's worth 10 points. And Doc, we haven't been giving. I said, don't worry. If I give an assignment which is due in March. That will be when we are ending our lectures sometime around ending. So this is for previous years. But take note of these. Some readings you should do. Oh dear. Some readings you should do. You should anything I mute up, we are having feedback. I'm on a different screen, so thank you. You see that you have to read around types of skepticism. We've done these in level 100, common sense skepticism, philosophical skepticism, absolute skepticism. When there is time, I'll take you to, but it's just a side plate that you can put on your meals for rationalism and always have a better experience at table. Okay, but the main meal is what we are preparing. But if you have a good and a fair, background to types of skepticism, the common sense one, philosophical one, absolute skepticism, the challenges that each one of them raise, you are a better off rationalist student, learner, than the one who just learned, Descartes, Plato, and doesn't have a good grounds in these. So read around that. Then the one I mentioned in class, rational, non-rational, irrational. The general sense of the term rational versus a technical sense of it and its counterparts. Okay, the Majid paper, I think I put it in your thing. If it's not there, it's something you can easily PDF. A class rep who is, very proactive, or a colleague of yours can just do that. If you check the place and it's not there, but look at that supernaturalism and rationality. Okay, and it has an African, tone to that to help us see, like I told you in the introduction, how the supposed Western thinking can have some kind of mediation that helps clarify our sources of knowledge if they were to incorporate some of these views that would normally be called non-rational or irrational, supernatural, so it's not rational. But you will go and see an internal analysis of that and see that the thing they call irrational is the very grounds on which they have built the whole epistemology sometimes. So you will see something like that from here. Okay, then graded activities so far not done one. All right, so that's the end of our first 2-in-1 lectures. No wonder we didn't finish in week 1. Any question? Then we can move on quickly to at least introduce the second one, which is innate concept and innate knowledge thesis. We'll take them one. Any question? Tabitha, is there a question you wanted to read? Please.
How do you want to? Madam, I wanted to read.
Excellent. Okay. So let's read a while and then we'll continue. Everyone, I think we have a good number on Sakai now. And if we open assessment, it should help everyone. If you come in late, you will continue from where we are. When I say if you come in late, when you register late, you would come and continue from wherever. This is the 3rd week ending. Okay. Next week is the 4th week of 11 weeks, almost half. We haven't done any continuous assessment. So by the 3rd week day, excuse me, if I open assessment, don't feel too disadvantaged if you miss that. I don't want to reopen assessment again. That's the only thing, because it comes with a lot of challenges that I'm trying to avoid. Okay, so I waited normally to be week 1, assignment 1, and you read it. I didn't do that. So this is the 3rd week ending. If by Monday, or I'm even planning on opening it now, due next week before we have our 4th session together, you should be on Sakai and respond on Sakai. Okay, so if you still haven't gotten onto Sakai, then how many of you are still not there? Now, Tabitha and Ernestina, put your hands down, please, if you can. I want to see those who are not on Sakai. I don't want you to just lose 10 marks, okay? So you put up your hand. Let me see. There are too many. Then, well, you see. So far, I see 1. We are 122. Okay, so others are trailing. They need it. When you put the marks down, it helps you. It makes you learn, then you earn. So it's continuously assessing. So I think that we should open assessment. Okay, I will do that. Thank you, Sarah, ma'am. Now we want to read the next slide. The topic is, for topic 2, ignore the data. I should have edited them. Okay, so innate knowledge or concept, indispensability and superiority of reason. I think I've touched on them, so we will just read. Go ahead, Ernestina.
The various ways of being rationalist.
Continue. So it's a continuation. Yeah. That's my task. That's what I'm doing in this presentation. I'm going to help you see the various ways of being rationalist. But that's what we did earlier. Oh yes, I'm continuing. Okay, so here we are. One, the innate knowledge thesis. Now you can see the connection because we did the first one, which was intuition deduction thesis. The second one, innate knowledge thesis. The third one, innate concept thesis. We have done the intuition deduction, and when we're ending, I prompted that next week when we meet, we'll be doing the innate knowledge and innate concept. And that's what we are doing now. Go ahead, my lady.
Okay. One,
Read
the
from the
innate
top.
knowledge.
Yeah.
The innate knowledge thesis claims that we have knowledge of some truth as part of our rational nature.
Take note, this person is also called rationalist because he believes that we have knowledge of certain truths. Truth, I've told you, think of it as what? Propositions, claims, statements, certain claims. We have knowledge of some truths, and that knowledge, we have it as part of our rational nature. The reason why a phone can pick and send calls is because that is what a phone is. That's its being. Sanity. Dogs bark by nature. They don't have to do anything to bark. They are that. So that knowledge that we have is part of our package as rational beings. This person speaking this way is, according to our discussions, also rationalist, but not in the way that the earlier group that we had, okay, defined it. The earlier person says, we intuit and we deduce. So if I am able to intuit something and I deduce the other one, that truth becomes what? A priori truth, known prior to experience. Known, if you like, independently of experience. Known apart from experience. That was intuition deduction thesis. This one too, just from start, is telling you that we know that truth, that claim, apart from experience. Why? Because we didn't do anything to know it. We didn't have to see, hear, touch, taste, smell to know. It is just what we are. So that knowledge is part of our makeup as rational beings. Very good. Continue.
Okay. Innate knowledge continued. 2. Like intuition or deduction thesis, innate knowledge thesis assert the existence of knowledge gained a priori, independently of experience.
That is what I have just said. If the thing is already inscribed, it is not just a concept. We'll deal with the innate concept shortly. It's almost like this. Concept is idea. So the idea of beauty. Remember Plato's world of ideas. I told my city campus last week when we met, when I was sitting under the tree there, with all the pressure on me trying to deliver content. I told you that the idea of beauty. So that we thought of Plato's world as world of forms, world of ideas, world of essences, world of reality. These are all describing one type of world, which Plato calls. So you see that if you haven't refreshed your memory on the Plato, you see that some of the things I'm saying will be scanty, which is fine because we'll engage the discussion proper. But you do that job. So when we meet, it is more a discussion than me coming to come and give you an exposition. Okay, because you have already met it in level 100 and level 200. But because I'm discussing the theory, I point out, just like I did with the Descartes thing. So you get a firm, grasp of the pillars in the discussion. Then you go and put on the frame, and then it becomes a full body. Okay. So what I'm doing now is trying to show you Plato's innate concept. We'll get to it shortly. But here we are dealing with innate knowledge. And maybe Plato belongs to this place also. But let me give you examples that are outside of them, still capturing the idea that I know before is knowledge, a corpus of it. You have collected them and put them together, not a word, not a term, the term beauty, the real form of beauty, the real form of justice, the real form of the good. Those are concepts. You see, here it is knowledge. I know who I am. Before the foundations of this earth, the Son was crucified, he knew what he was coming to be. I'm giving an example. So in heaven, when they asked who will go and die, he said, send me, I will go. So he knew his assignment. Typical example. If you're a Christian, that's what I'm showing. It's knowledge, it's not just ideas of justice, beauty. No. He knew, so he told Judas, what you are going to do it quickly. Because this is the time. At certain time, the people wanted to stone him. I'm referring to Jesus now. So if you don't do Jesus, just Google something, just so we can have an example. After that, I'll go to traditional. Some people believe that. And so it sounds like the rationalist tone, innateness that we are dealing with now. And this innateness is not just merely innate knowledge, innate concept, but innate knowledge. I know that when I come to earth, I'll give birth to 6 children, and 3 of them will go before the other 3, something like that. So the person coming, grab that knowledge. They say it is there. You have forgotten, in order will get there. So you go and see some opinion and you go into it and tell you, I want to ask Okra. I'll ask your Okra, because especially if the person is sick or something, and they want to know if this sickness is unto death. The Christian folks amongst you think that it's in the Bible. Not that it is good or bad. I'm not in the place. If you come to me and we share faith, I'll tell you what I think about. I'm teaching. So I'm pointing out evidences for us to solve of the Old Testament, when to ask. Ekwe means they go to find out what are my chances, in this war. Can you call Samuel's whatever ghost or dead whatever for me to ask him something? Jesus went on to the Mount of Transfiguration. We hear people saying that he went to call the souls and the spirits of Elijah and Moses. What I'm trying to say with all this is that there are viewpoints that claim that we already know, innate, inborn. That's the word. I just brought it out on our screen now. Certain truth. It might not be all, but certain truths, we know them. These truths are not just concepts, but they are knowledge. So Jesus told somebody, this is not my time. When they wanted to stone him, it wasn't his time. So he knew that they wouldn't be able to. He just walked through them and left when they were trying to stone him. Okay, but when it was his time, because he knows, in the Garden of Gethsemane, he told them, hey, so you can't even wait with me. My time is now. It's like labor. Now your husband is snoring at the labor ward. You are shocked. Hey, why do you do that? Because you know that you had 9 months. And now the bed pangs are heavy on you. And you expect that this is the time someone will stand with you and say, oh, sorry, my lady. Sorry. It is for you. I want you to be seen as a man. You to have a child. I'm dying. Going through something that is very difficult. That's why he came to ask them. You couldn't wait with me for even 1 hour. You are snoring, people. Because he knew knowledge. It's not concept. And then when finally he was hanging on the cross, he said, it is finished. What is finished? You think the person didn't know the assignment? When do you say that you are finished? When you know that you have to begin from here and end here, and you see that now I'm done, then you go and hand over your script for marking. Okay, so knowledge that is inborn. How do you know that? Because before the foundations, the lamb was slain. He was buried before even that was what was used to do the what pacification, to start the building, called it, to found it, its foundation. Therefore, it's not any surprise. It's not like something that has surprised the person. All of a sudden, some people have become powerful than God, and they have been able to take his son and kill him. It's sad and all. No, you have to have a revelation of it. Okay, if you got all that, someone may be asking, we'll go into it. And I use Christianity is a big religion, founded on a big, look at the number of people that are Christians. So you don't need just a philosophical view by some small philosophers to say that is what is key. This shows you innate knowledge that some people believe in, and which makes that view rationalist. So sometimes they are not perturbed because they have what? Inborn knowledge of what perhaps their assignment, what is going to happen next. I'm giving you scenarios. Look at the number of things I gave you. If you do Bible a little, read and see. Where it is part of the plan is straightforward. Where it is not part, they are calling him somewhere to come and save his friends. Lazarus that is dead. He didn't go. The man is sick unto death. He didn't go because he knew that from there, something else is going to knowledge. From there is the beginning of his death. So just like your lecture, Dr. Miles speaking to you now. Saturday morning, I knew that I was due today. I carried my scoliosis baby somewhere inside my tummy. I knew that I'm due today, but I have to help certain students that are finishing. That's the last lecture, so I've forgotten. So I'll go in the morning and go in there. So the punks are there, but I'm in the lecture hall teaching. And if a nurse or a mother or an auntie that is helping is there, you say, hey, what you are doing, you have to go. Let's go so that they monitor you and all that. I said, don't worry, I know. So they are calling him, your friend Lazarus is dying. He's there. That is the time that his I used him, quote and unquote, is high. He has left the guy. I said, you don't care. And then he took extra 3 days or so to walk or travel to the place. I'm showing you that because he knew innate knowledge before, that from there, that miracle that will be done there will initiate the beginning of what? Pushing baby out, the bed punks. So he delayed and delayed and delayed and attracted a crowd that have come to bury. The magician, that's how they thought of him. The big man, the medical doctor that knows what's up. Everybody's saying that, hey, he there. Sick people don't die in his hands. So now the best friend and the family that he has, the family in the sense that they go there, some are cooking for him, some are there, everybody's happy, they are calling people, hey, Jesus has come, or come and listen to what he has to say. So he couldn't save this one. The bypassers and the standing by have come. What have they come to do? To come and see and go and tell, gather the crowd. Huh? That means God show, when he's demonstrating, he likes show. He likes to gather. So when the thing looks so desperate, then he comes in. Gathered people so that he can start and attract anger. Remember what Peter said, I will not let you die. All these things I'm saying, if he didn't know, he would have said Peter is the best person that time. He told him, get thee behind me, Satan. Why? Knowledge. Knowledge. He knew that I have to go through this, and from there go through that, and from there go through that. Not just one off. So he silenced the person who felt like he's defending him from getting into debt. Take note. Reference it. When there, even in the garden, Gethsemane, when they were arrested, Peter pulled knife, cut off ears to save him. He says, don't do that. Put it back where you moved, put it there. It means this death is mine. But in previous times, they carry him away, like they protect him and he runs away from them. One time he ran because it wasn't the time. The people want to truncate it. He knew knowledge from birth through adult age. Even when mommy and daddy have come and their siblings, they say, we are looking for a brother. He says, stand aside, you people. Mother and brother and sister are those who do the will of the Father. Somebody that you, Mufras, they had to carry you and run away with you. Look at how you're talking to your mother. He knew his assignment. He knew. So knowledge, innate knowledge here meaning knowledge that is inborn. Nobody was telling him. But he came with an assignment. Now that is so Christian and so religious. And so someone might think, oh, Doc is preaching to us. And it is good. It's a good thing if I'm preaching. But now let's go to the traditional folks, where you can have someone still on what? Innate knowledge. This knowledge is gained prior to experience. That's what I'm telling you. Prior to seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, smelling in this experiential world. That is why it is what? Rationalist in orientation. How did we know this? It means there could be certain truths known prior to experience, not by intuition and deduction per se, which is another way of being rationalist. But here, it is innate knowledge thesis. So be careful when you want to rubbish what someone is saying. That means I know, or I think I know what you will be. You may not believe it. Maybe you are an intuition deduction thesis. Respect that, but realize that we could have truths according to these rationalists, that are known, their knowledge, not just truth as in statement or concept, but knowledge proper. And so I went through all that. Look at the number of people that are, if there are even 3 billion people in the world that are Christian, they all believe in this. That sense of it, they are some kind of rationalists. All right. So the traditional folks. I listened to an MPhil, someone who was making an MPhil, something about death thesis, was writing an MPhil thesis about death and some investigations and some research that she was doing then. I don't know if she ultimately finished, but that's one of the seminars. I looked at the papers and then the field work and some too from my own experiences. And I'm sure some of you can bear that. There are people, they know that they will never die by accident. And they are so confident about it that sometimes it leads them to, abuse. Like they will drive rough because in their crack, and not crack necessarily as an account system, but when they went to say, I am awful, I'm going, before they came into the physical world. Don't say that, hey, doc, but this thing you are talking, Plato's thing that we learned, Plato. If he says that you already know beauty, justice, the good, but you have forgotten as you were being pushed out. These are not stories I'm telling you. Go and search. You see, that forgetfulness comes as you are being pushed into and you wear this physical container. So the body is an obstruction to your knowledge, your clear grasping of what you already know. You know it already, but you have forgotten because you have put on flesh, like I'm talking Paul now. The good I want to do, I'm unable to do because of this restriction in the body. I'm going to fast, whatever, reflected. So reflection is, the non-physical, mounted higher. See, now I'm going to make sure that I don't do this evil thing. Maybe you smoke or something. As soon as you descend, your eyes will see. Maybe it's stealing. Your eyes will go and see somebody's money. If you didn't see, what are you going to rob? If Eja Atalutu didn't rub your back, if Atalutu didn't rub your back for you to feel the touch, I wish I were in class with you, which is stop. So that back quiz rabbit. Go and enjoy. What if you didn't have a skin to feel? Have you heard that a soul has been caught stealing? It doesn't touch, it doesn't see, it doesn't smell, it doesn't taste. If you smell, some people, it's the smell of the Guinness or better still beer that makes you drink. When you open it, or wine, when they open the way the flavor, they say, Charlie, I'm trying to stop, but give me a glass. These are outlets, says Plato. If you revise him, and we are going to do it together, but start tutorial, go with T. Mohammed. I don't know if he made it online now. He has a lot of his text. But Mohammed, are you around? Okay, engage him. Plato's own Descartes will read. You will see. It is the physical body and its outlets, windows of obstruction, infiltration, that makes you forget. So Plato too makes some assumption of a pre-existence, even if it is not explicit. You have to pre-exist to know the reality. And then if you are pushed out into the physical world and you take on a bodily feature, now the body is blurring your vision of what is really beautiful and what is really just and what is really the good. So you struggle and struggle and struggle until death comes. That is what a separation, the physical from the physical, but from the non-physical again. Then you say, oh, death, where is your pangs? Now you can clearly see and grab and comprehend and apprehend what the real from what I've just said, right? There's no preaching, it's Plato. And so when Paul tells you, as for me to live is Christ, to die is gain. It's when I die, gain, because I'm now separated from all the wretchedness of this physical deception. Look at movies in our African setting, or sometimes even in the non-African setting. As soon as the person dies and then the non-physical part is separated from the physical, then the person can know who really killed her. There's no abstraction. Except that when you know, you can't beat them. So sometimes they have to force and then that is if the whatever non-physical part hasn't left. can't go and it's still around. Let's use the Nigerian ones that we all like to want to relax, Now the person is trying to slap you back, but oh boy and boy, he's trying to tell you, no, it's not this, it's not my wife. It was my uncle. He did it. It's not my wife. Nobody's here. He's trying to pass, it passes through because the assumption is that soul is what? Not within space and time. Now let's roll back. So I just said all that to show you that even in Plato, who you would consider, please, let's focus on the philosophy. Yes, there is a certain thinking of what? Pre-existence. That is where you would have gained the knowledge or the imprints in your mind prior to existence. So when we say innate, it is knowledge that you already have. So the traditional folks, some believe, depending on which, and I want you to research, read around. This is what sometimes you do with your long essays, and some you want to write an article or something. That is where it comes from. Because let me tell you, you might not say, I don't this one, when you know it, then what? If I know that me, I will not die by accident. Because Makwe Bisa, I'm going to find out. Because why am I finding out? Because when I came through the physical body, I have forgotten. Even what you did at 3:13 yesterday, will you remember? Just yesterday. I remember personal identity. When Locke wants us to think of what? The person as defined, that which defines who you are and distinct from the other person. Okay, we did it in level 200 or maybe 100, personal identity. Sameness and difference. What establishes that you, the baby that was on your mother, is the one that is what? Is still sitting by me right now. How do we establish that? Sameness versus what? Difference. What does Locke say? Locke says consciousness, self-consciousness, and memory. So the fact that you can remember. Our critique against that was what? Even what happened yesterday at 2 minutes past 3. Will you remember exactly that? Yesterday. How much more when you were 6 years ago of your life? So then you are not who you are because we don't remember everything. How much more now, back to our discussion, how much more prior to existence, when you put on this container called body and you start growing in it, and you get more of the infiltration, it goes into your ears, into your eyes, into your mouth, your touch, everything. You become so corrupted now. I'm speaking corrupted in the logical sense of it, in philosophy. The senses blur your vision so much that you can't even grab what? True reality of what is the good, what is the bad. This is Plato's argument. If you live around a place that has public toilet, apologies, and you stay there for long, you don't smell it again. No? Your system gets assimilated to it. You can eat your fufu and soup next to the thing. Not the things, I'm talking about the scent. But if someone who doesn't stay there, who is very sensitive to those, as soon as she can, even from a distance, she can hear, that's it. It looks like someone has removed their shoe in this room. And the shoe is in the bedroom, some corner, but the person's nostrils is sharp because she's not living with such things. Those who live in it, they don't smell that anything has happened. I eat to eat, let's go. He said, no, something is smelling. It's so uncomfortable. It's not always out of ahochre, like you want to be picky. Now, Plato's point is, the more we get accustomed to the infiltration means negative. What is coming is spoiling the true, pure knowledge that we had. Then we mix it up. So sometimes, back to the traditional folks, they will go and ask those who have the capacity to do that, to look into their shebre or nkrabia and tell them what they are. Sometimes they say, it's not you. No, it's not you. It is in your thing. Maybe you can do exchange, or you can come and pacify, or you can go blah, blah, blah. The point I'm making then is people believe, back to our direct discussion, that we have some knowledge as part of our rational nature. Some know this one is Plato. It is part of what we are as rational human beings. So the table doesn't have rational knowledge. The dog, perhaps, because it's not a rational human being, may be moving, a living thing, can think a little, but rationality is an attribute of what? The human beings. Of course, not babies and not mentally sick. But because he didn't qualify that will attract a criticism from John Locke, which you have to start reading now. You see how many things I'm pointing out? read around Locke's criticism of the innate knowledge thesis. That if it's children, excuse me, if it's human beings that have it by their nature, then why is it that children don't know good and bad? They'll come and stand on the stage at lecture hall with their panty and wee 2-year-old and be like, Daddy, Daddy, Mommy. Didn't they know that it's wrong to do that? That's Locke's critique. So perhaps if a rationalist, Plato's rationalist thesis is to be defended a bit more, perhaps you may want to refine it, or you may have a response, but we'll discuss all that. But he says, by our knowledge, by our rational nature. What about the mentally sick? They go around spitting everywhere. Some things are dangling left, right, center, walking from Cape Coast all the way back to Accra and back to Cape Coast. That's a mentally sick person. No bathing. Can even pull a knife. The one that unfortunate issue that happened in Circle recently. Apparently, the woman was mentally sick. People didn't know. Picked something and hit the Okada driver also to death. To death. Has killed the person. He didn't know that killing is wrong. Indiscriminate killing is wrong. But he's a human being. So how would Plato, who claimed that by our rational nature, we know certain truths like those we have highlighted earlier, innately. How does he answer that? Okay, so you would have to read around, but so far that's what we've done. I want to round off nicely, then we can go. Like intuition deduction thesis, innate knowledge thesis asserts what the existence of knowledge gained a priori. That's what Madame, that is independently of experience. The difference between them rests in the accompanying understanding of how this a priori knowledge is gained. So they all believe a prioriness. Remember, that's why it's rationalist. But one thing, we know it a priori through intuition and deduction. That's point one. This one that we are engaging now, things we know it a priori by our rational nature, just by who we are. I went to use the Christian example of Christ. No, because I use someone else, it will be like going someone's story. So I used a faith matter to show you that. And Jesus didn't say it was just by my rational nature as a human being. Just that. So we will focus on the philosophy now. But he knew from day one till on the cross that it's finished. Then even when he resurrected, he's telling them, I have to go and show myself to my father and tell him the work is done. The woman is touching. He said, wait, let me go and see the lecture and see how I fared. Because if I didn't do, I may come and do it again. So don't touch me yet. It's not celebration. Wait, let me go and come. When I go and come and they say, hey, wow, Tabitha, you did very well in the exam. You got an A. I will confidently come and celebrate with you. And I'm sure he did that. So when he came back, he was showing himself all over. Thomas doesn't believe. He said, look at me. It's the same. He was telling them it will be buried. I'll go down the earth and out in 3 days' time. When he was saying that this building, you see, the body will be destroyed in 3 days resurrected. They didn't see it until resurrection time. Okay, so he knew. Now, what about those that go and ask? He said, do you want children when you go into the earth? Or you want money? He said, with the way these people, many people behave, no, me, I want plenty children. Then you are in a pure world until you descend. He said, hey, man, cry. You hear people say that? I didn't cry, I can't say. When I was going, I didn't tell my mother. How did you? I didn't cry my mother. Let's continue. Man, cry means I didn't choose well. I didn't say my bye-bye well. Because before I put on human flesh, I went somewhere. That's the belief. It's a doctrine. It's a viewpoint. And they asked me, you are going to this other way. What do you want? How do you want to go? Because there you are pure. Maybe they don't use money to buy anything. So you don't think it's money. It's children. Then I have plenty of children. So I want children. And it's okay. You have it. But this is the assignment. So there's Inkrabia and Shebre. This one day you must attain it. Or you must do it. Maybe there was something going on. That's why you came. So Shebre, now Inkrabia. Okay? You can think of that. These are all Akan, and you know that we have an African orientation as a department as well. Now philosophizing. So work with it. Shebre in Krabia. That's why some believe that when you go and maybe you didn't discharge it, they will let you come again. But that is on the stream. You can look at Prof. Majid's reincarnation thesis that he did for his PhD. All right. So we want to round off, and then we'll know where to continue when we meet at our various sessions. Both innate knowledge and innate concept deal with a priori knowledge. The difference is in how we acquire them. And then obviously you can see on my screen how one things we get it from intuition and deduction, while the other things just by our rational nature. So when we meet, God willing, next week, either Tuesday or Thursday, Tuesday for main campus, I plan that will be in person. I was saying that the training has gone on. There are a lot of undone, the fixed ACs. We hope that it works. If it doesn't work, it is this link that I will prompt the class and we'll use it. And we plan to have a very effective teaching. I mean, when I say we are doing online, it's not a joke. We'll have effective teaching. So if it turns out that main campus is also online, well, if it's, you won't lose anything because the room there is still being fixed. The response to us was by Friday, everything there will be done so that we can access the smart classroom. We have quite a number of lectures teaching there for that training, showing you that it is not about our course alone, rationalism. There are others there. So if it doesn't look like the place is still ready for us to project like this and engage, and then the hall is not all set, we'll do online on Tuesday at our very time with the same link. Then Thursday, City Campus, we are still in the 4th week. We'll do it for 6 weeks before we think of possibly a swap back to in person, if we want to. If not, we will do online throughout. It's a decision we have to make. Okay, so next week, City Campus on Thursday, we'll engage. This is where we'll continue from. Slide number 3, that is, you see it as lecture 3, and we'll go to the part that we are on slide number 7 here and engage. All right. Any questions? I've already prompted that our open assessment one. Okay, I think that you should put some marks down from all the work done. Then you build on it. Let's see if there's a question. Lita, please ask your question and then we can round off. Thank you, my lady who read for me. Ernestina, Tabitha, and Calvina. Go ahead. Lita, please ask your question. You are muted, so please unmute first and ask. Oh dear, then let's take, okay. It's better now, go ahead. Oh, Lita, we can't hear you. Okay, let me take Roxanne Edugem. You can always send me an email, okay? Roxanne, go ahead.
Yeah, Doug, like you were saying that according to Plato, the more we get accustomed to the infiltration, like I couldn't complete that sentence if you can.
I didn't want you to write it down. I want us to engage it together.
Oh.
But the point is, if you are, you have to learn it. You see, I have learned it. So I'm just, if you like, synthesizing and bringing, it has to be coherently done to help you. But what I said was, the more we get accustomed to the infiltration coming to us through the senses. See, take note of the word. It's an infiltration. A ura, is coming in. The more we get accustomed, we get used to it. Now we don't even realize that it is rubbish. So the more we get accustomed to the infiltration through the senses, we miss the real nature of things, the reality of beauty, for example, the reality of justice. We miss it because we have eaten food that is not sweet. The day they put good food, you are still looking for the rotten thing. Something like that. That is what we see. That is why the day we die, death means separation of the physical from the non-physical. The day you do that, Plato says it's a good, great day. It's a great day. And if you are worried that, why are we saying these things in a philosophy class? Then look at what your Bible tells you. Paul says to die is gain. When I die, I've gained, Papa. I'm not, all the troubles. Why is school fees and, why will you even be hungry? Hunger. All this school, you have come rationalism, there is no coffee, so you can eat. That's all. I'm telling you, eat through your mouth and eat through your other places. Someone said, because you will marry and then have to eat it. That's all. Thank you, sir. I'm just elaborating. Okay, it's all about that can have daily bread. Nothing much. Okay, Tyra.
Yeah.
Go
Go ahead, my lady.
Would it be possible for us to have our class online at City Campus?
We are having it online up to the 6th week. That is the agreement. You are asking if we can do it throughout. Is that your question, please? Hello, Tyra.
I'm asking main campus can we have online?
Yes, I proposed that from day
Throughout.
one. Yes, please. For main campus, I propose that throughout because it's more effective for me for certain classes like this one. This is a mature, it's not a class that is now learning how to find A or B or C. They have the basics. I propose that to the class. If you ask, they'll tell you. So you can consider that. You can think around it and let us know. Because either way, I'm fine. The only thing is that when it's online, at least for a topic like this one, we don't do a lot of, writing, rules. It's not like element of formal logic, for example. But this one, so we can consider that. It's a decision that the class must make. The university is open to either. In fact, we are going almost online for everything. Smart, because that is the way now. Okay, so Tara, I suggested that if it turns out that main campus still wants the in-person, majority-wise, because others too may not have gadget, but those things are not excuses. You can't say you don't have a pen to write an exam, or your pen floated and all those things. Get a good internet, and let's hope that we don't have any mishaps. That's the push trend always. If it doesn't work for main campus, then you are always able to join city campus. That's why I use only one link for a course. Even if I have 7 groups, it will be one link. So that if there are any hiccups, people can easily find it. Okay. Thank you. Let's take Lita.
Thank you very much.
Just so that it is on record, for city campus, they are required. The school wants them to do hybrid because of spacing and everything else. And the students themselves, they need that. So they would have done 1 week in person, 1 online, the other week in person, 1 online. I think that can get confusing. Like if we had a holiday or something, you don't know whether the next week you're going in person or online, can get a bit confusing. So I did the needful and then wrote the academic office and told them I want them in blocks. We will do the first half online. It would have been the first half in person, but that would create more problem for them getting spaces and what have you, and then the clashes that they want to avoid. So first block online, and I'll communicate to the class and give them time to settle in. Or someone will come thinking it's week 1, this so apt. This is the 3rd week. We have mopped up almost everything that we started with. Okay. So we'll do that. And then the second half, if they have spaces, we can come and do the in-person. In-person is really stressful for students. Finding car to come all the way to city campus and what have you. We just buy that data or find a good gadget and then you sit and have a good time. Okay, so it's not something like you decided to give some people some preference and others not. It is their decision. The main campus, we are able to say we are doing fully online. So far as lectures are delivered, but online, you can monitor. When you come out, give you all my recording of the session. And if I come into the physical lecture, when I talk and we chat for 30 minutes, 1 hour close, who is monitoring to see that? So either way, I don't lose anything. It's just what works and is effective, and we all do it. And then we last. So you can talk with your colleague. Lita, if you are sorted, I think your hand just went down. Then we are good to go. Thank you all very much. I think I enjoyed the session, though I would have enjoyed it better.
You're welcome,
We were able to. You are not done. Ask your question. If it had been more interactive and discussion, and I hope that subsequent weeks will have that. Let's go ahead. Okay, I think it was not a question, or he's sorted. Thank you. Have a wonderful week. And let's see, God willing, next week. Look out for the assignment as soon as it's posted. I don't know if I'll put your test and quizzes or assignment, whatever it is, you work for your first 10%. And I want you to do well. So I'm prompting. Take care.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.